Chosen one, you made God laugh with joy. Even the devil didn't expect this. Light Up Faith, listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you will disturb you before it inspires you. 10 days ago, something happened. You don't remember it, but heaven does. And in that exact moment, while you were distracted, tired, maybe even struggling, something so rare occurred that every force in the unseen realm stopped. Not metaphorically, literally. War paused, healing paused, messages paused, because God laughed. Not a quiet smile, not gentle approval, but a deep, overwhelming, unstoppable laughter that echoed across eternity. And the most terrifying part, it was because of you. Now here's where it gets unsettling, because while heaven celebrated, something else happened at the same time. The enemy froze for the first time, speechless, because what you did was not supposed to happen. Not after everything you've been through. Not after the betrayals. Not after the exhaustion. Not after the silent battles no one knows you're fighting. You were supposed to change. You were supposed to harden. You were supposed to become like the people who hurt you, but you didn't. And that broke the pattern. Let me take you back to that moment. You were walking through an ordinary day. Nothing special. No audience. No applause waiting. Your mind was probably full. Worries about money, pressure from responsibilities, maybe even that quiet loneliness you don't talk about. And then you saw someone, not dramatically broken, not visibly desperate, just someone who needed something. And here's where everything shifted. You didn't think, you didn't calculate, you didn't pause to ask, what do I gain from this? You just acted. Maybe you gave and you barely had enough. Maybe you helped when you were already tired. Maybe you spoke up when staying silent would have been safer, or maybe you simply smiled at someone who felt invisible. And that moment, so small to you, shook heaven, because Scripture has always revealed something most people overlook. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. 1 Samuel 16, verse 7. And in that moment, your heart spoke before your mind could interfere. That's what made it different. Most people are kind after thinking. You are kind before thinking. And that is extremely rare, because most kindness is filtered, measured, calculated. Even in faith, people often act out of obligation, reward, or recognition. Jesus warned about this. When you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Matthew 6, verse 3. But very few actually live that way. You did, without trying, without performing, without even realizing it mattered. And that is why heaven reacted the way it did. Because what you revealed was not behavior, it was nature. Now here's where the story deepens, because this wasn't about one moment. Heaven has been watching you for a long time. Every time you forgave when you had the right to hold a grudge. Every time you stayed soft in a world that rewards hardness. Every time you gave while secretly needing more yourself. And every time something tried to change you, that, let's be honest, your life hasn't been easy, that you've been misunderstood, taken for granted, used, disappointed. There were moments when being kind felt like being foolish. Moments when you questioned if you should stop caring so much. Moments when you almost became someone else just to survive. And that's exactly what the enemy wanted. Because the easiest way to win is not to destroy you, but to change you. If he could make you bitter, he wouldn't need to attack you anymore. If he could make you selfish, your purpose would collapse on its own. That's why the attacks were so specific at S.O. personal. S.O. repetitive. IT wasn't random. IT was strategic. Because a person who chooses kindness occasionally is not a threat, but a person whose nature is kindness cannot be controlled. And that's who you are, even when it cost you, even when it hurt, even when it made no sense. You remained you. And 10 days ago, heaven confirmed something. You didn't just survive the attacks, you resisted transformation. And that is when God laughed. Not because the act was big, but because your purity remained intact. You understand how rare that is. In the Bible, Job lost everything, his wealth, his family, his health, and yet refused to curse God. That wasn't about suffering. It was about integrity, about remaining unchanged when everything pressures you to break. You're walking a similar path in your own way. And when heaven saw that your kindness was Still automatic, still natural, still unforced. It triggered something powerful. Because there's a difference between learned goodness and embedded goodness. Point one can be removed, the other cannot. And yours cannot. That's when everything shifted. Because in the unseen realm, there are responses to different levels of faith. Faith that is convenient brings blessing. Faith that is tested brings growth. But faith that remains pure without effort activates protection. This is where your story becomes intense. Because at that moment, when divine laughter echoed, something else was set into motion, that a response system in alignment, that a protection protocol you didn't ask for, but earned, the kind mentioned in Psalm 91. He will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. Not occasionally, not conditionally, but continuously. And suddenly, things around you began to shift. You may not have noticed it clearly yet, but look closely. People who once drained you are slowly disappearing. Conversations feel different, that you're seeing through situations faster than before. Certain opportunities are appearing at strange, perfect times. And there's something else. A peace that doesn't match your circumstances. That's not coincidence. That's alignment. Because when your heart proves it, cannot be corrupted, heaven invests in protecting it. But here's the twist no one tells you. Protection doesn't mean ease, that IT means preservation. You will still face challenges, but they won't change you. You will still experience pressure, but it won't define you. Because now, something stands between you and what was trying to break you. And this is where many people fail the next phase, because surviving pain is one thing, but handling blessing is another. In Deuteronomy 8 verse 18, it says, "Remember the Lord, your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth." Why does it say remember? Because blessing can make people forget who they were, forget how they got there, forget the very heart that made them worthy of it. And that is your next test. Not pain, not betrayal, but increase. What will you do when things finally start working? Will you still give? Will you still care? Will you still act without calculating? Because the same purity that made heaven respond must remain. Or everything changes. And this is why your story matters more than you think. Because right now, someone is watching you. Not literally, but energetically. People around you are silently deciding whether kindness is still worth it, whether being genuine still matters, whether staying soft in a hard world is strength or weakness, and your life is answering that question for them. Every time you choose kindness again, you shift something beyond yourself. That's why Jesus said, "You are the light of the world." Matthew 5 verse 14, light doesn't argue. It reveals. And your life is revealing something rare. That goodness can survive, that purity can endure, that kindness is not weakness. It is resistance. Listen carefully, because this is where your awareness must sharpen. You are not just living. You are influencing outcomes you cannot see, and the fact that you didn't even realize it is exactly why it's powerful. Because the purest things are never performed, they are lived. And that's what made heaven laugh. Not your action, but your nature. And now that you know this, you cannot go back to being unaware, because awareness brings responsibility. You don't have to be perfect, you don't have to get everything right, but you do have to remain real, remain generous, remain you, because what you carry is rare, and it matters more than you think. That if something inside you is recognizing this, not emotionally, but deeply, then you already know. This message found you at the right moment. We'll show you exactly what begins to happen next, when heaven decides to not just observe you, but actively move in your life. What I'm about to reveal now is the part most people are never told, because it's not just about what happened 10 days ago. It's about what started because of it. And if you don't understand this next phase, you might misread everything that begins to unfold in your life. Because when heaven stops observing and starts moving, things don't just improve, they intensify. Not in the way you expect, in the way that exposes, reveals, separates, and positions you. Let me explain the moment that laughter echoed through the unseen realm. It wasn't just celebration. It was confirmation. And confirmation always leads to assignment. That I in the Bible. Every time God confirmed someone, their life didn't get easier. It became more precise. Joseph had dreams, then he was betrayed. David was anointed, then he was hunted. Jesus was affirmed, then he was tested in the wilderness. Why? Because confirmation doesn't remove pressure, that it reveals purpose. And purpose demands alignment, that's what is happening to you right now. Things are aligning, and alignment feels like disruption before it feels like peace. Have you noticed it? Certain people acting strange for no reason, connections fading without conflict, plans not working the way you expected, even when you did everything right. That's not failure, that's filtering, because not everyone assigned to your past is allowed in your future. And when divine protection activates, it doesn't just block attacks, that it removes access. Some people didn't leave because they wanted to, they left because they couldn't stay. Your energy changed, your atmosphere shifted, and what used to be comfortable started feeling incompatible. This is exactly what Scripture means when it says, two cannot walk together unless they agree. Amos 3 verse 3. Agreement is not just about words, it's about spirit. And your spirit has elevated us. Oh, now anything misaligned begins to feel heavy, confusing, or forced. That's your signal. Not to chase, not to fix, but to release. Because here's the truth most people struggle to accept. Not every loss is an attack. Some losses are protection in disguise. And if you hold on to what God is removing, you delay what God is sending. Now here's where things get even deeper. Because while some people are being removed, something else is quietly happening. You are being increased, not just externally, internally. Your discernment is sharper, that you're noticing things you used to ignore, that you're feeling what people don't say, that you're sensing intentions without evidence. That's not overthinking, that's spiritual awareness. That in 1 Corinthians 2 verse 14, it says, the person without the Spirit does not accept the things that come from the Spirit of God, but considers them foolish, because they are discerned only through the Spirit. What you're experiencing is discernment, and it comes with a cost, because once you see clearly, you can't pretend anymore. You can't tolerate what once felt normal. You can't stay where your spirit feels disturbed, and that can feel lonely. But it's not isolation, it's separation for elevation. Now listen carefully, because this next part is critical. There are two things happening at the same time in your life right now. Point one, heaven is increasing your protection, clarity, and influence. Point two, the enemy is making a final attempt to confuse you before you fully step into it. And confusion doesn't come as chaos, it comes as doubt. Subtle thoughts like, maybe I'm overthinking this. Maybe I should go back to how things were. Maybe being this kind is actually holding me back. That's not your voice, that's interference. Because your greatest strength is exactly what the enemy wants you to question. Your nature, your kindness, your instinct to give without calculating. That if he can make you analyze it too much, he can interrupt it. That if he can make you doubt it, he can weaken it. That's why this phase requires awareness, not fear, not overreaction, just awareness. Because the strategy hasn't changed. Only the intensity has. But here's what the enemy didn't expect. You're no longer unaware, and awareness changes everything. Because now when something feels off, you don't ignore it, you observe it. When something drains you, you don't justify it, you step back. When something doesn't align, you don't force it, you release it. That's growth, and growth makes you untouchable in ways you don't even realize yet. Now let's talk about what's coming next, because this is where your story shifts from survival to manifestation. Over the next season of your life, things will begin to open up, randomly, precisely. Opportunities that match who you are becoming, not who you used to be. People who recognize your value without you having to prove it. Doors that don't require you to compromise your character to walk through. But here's the tension, because with every opportunity, there will be a test. Not to stop you, but to reveal you. Will you stay the same person when things get better? Because many people stay humble when they have nothing, but change when they gain something. That's why Proverbs 4:23 says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Not guard your money, not guard your reputation, guard your heart. Because your heart is your power. It's the reason heaven responded to you. And it's the one thing success tries to reshape .so when things start improving. And they will pay attention to small decisions. How you treat people who can't benefit you. How you respond when you no longer need to struggle. How you give when it's no longer difficult, because those moments define everything. Now let me reveal something that will shift your perspective completely. You're not just being blessed, you are being positioned. There's a difference that a blessing changes your situation, that a position changes your impact. And your life is moving toward impact. That's why your kindness matters so much. Because it's not just helping individuals, it's influencing environments. Every room you walk into shifts slightly because of you. Not loudly, not dramatically, but subtly. Because real influence doesn't force change, IT introduces it. That's why Jesus compared it to yeast. The kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman took and mixed into about 60 pounds of flour until it worked all through the dough. Matthew 13, verse 33. Small, hidden, but transformative, that's you. And that's why the enemy tried so hard to change you early. Because if your nature remained intact, your impact would be unstoppable later. And now, we are entering that later. So what do you do with all of this? You don't try to become something new. You don't force yourself to be more spiritual. You don't perform. You simply remain kind, remain aware, remain aligned. Because what got you here is what will take you further. And the moment you try to replace your nature with strategy, you lose the very thing that made you powerful. Don't overcomplicate it. You don't need to understand everything. You just need to stay true to what has always been natural to you, that quiet instinct to help, that pull to give, that resistance to become cold. That is not weakness. That is your assignment. And now, it's your responsibility, because whether you realize it or not, people are finding light through you, hope through you, direction through you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. And in a world full of performance, real is rare. Don't lose that. Not for comfort, not for approval, not for success. Because the moment you stay true to that, everything meant for you finds it. If this message didn't just sound good, but felt like confirmation deep inside you, then you already know this isn't random. Stay aware in the next few days. Watch what shifts, watch what leaves, watch what arrives. And most importantly, watch who you are becoming, because this is only the beginning. And if you're ready to step fully into what's unfolding, you already know what to do next. Stay connected to Light Up Faith, because what's coming you won't want to miss.